going on, everybody? Welcome to Freddy and Friends. Today I got a very special guest, dear friend of mine, Mr. Jesus Perez.
What's up?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Happy to
coming.
be here.
It's good to see you, my man.
Likewise, man.
I want to get right into it with you, man, because I haven't seen you in a minute, and I think you're the perfect specimen to be on this show. And the reason is there's a lot going on in that brain.
Definitely.
And there's a lot going on here that I think we should share with people. Because as you know, this show's about it's about people like us that are grinding. We're not there yet. We're just cutting our teeth every day trying to make it. And it's that real shit that's just like, stuff's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get to the top. It's not easy to make money. It's not easy to really put yourself out there. So I want to get right into it with you. You're a fitness professional. But before we go into that, you're also an entrepreneur. You own a gym. You own an amazing gym in West Hollywood, which in itself is a feat, right? I mean, it's the most expensive place in the friggin' world. Yeah. Not a place where a feeble guy is going to make an attempt. And kudos to you for having a popular-ass gym, training the who's who of Hollywood.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, of course. So I want to start in the beginning, man. So you're pretty young. I mean, you look like you're fucking 24 years old, but I know you're pushing pushing past 30.
I'm 31.
All right. And I know you for a long time. And what I've always respected about you was you just had that grit, and you have like an old school kind of mentality, and that's I think why we connected, because we're kind of from that same background.
Definitely.
You kind of jumped right into opening a business. Like, I know you were a bodybuilder originally, right? Back in the day.
Yeah.
And you did some training at some gyms and stuff. And then, boom, opened yourself your own facility.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I mean, I wasn't a bodybuilder. I did do like a bodybuilding show more to experiment and just see how that went, so I can, talk to clients about it. I already had the vision of trying to be a trainer. Yeah. Went to college, that was more just to please my parents, just to have some kind of backup plan. But I always had in the back of my mind just trying to get whatever degree just so that I can, at the end of the day, it was a backup. That was going to get me nowhere. Yeah. It was more about like thinking and figuring out which kind of business I wanted to do. So went to college, finished in 4 years. And then after that, I was like, well, okay, I still didn't know what to do. So I got a job working at a high school, and I was like, maybe I'll just coach a sport, work with kids, teach them what I wish I would have known back when I was in high school. Did that for about a year, but I was 21, 22 at that point, working with kids that are like 16, 17, trying to tell them how to run their life.
Right.
So then for me, I was like, yeah, I should probably get a little bit more life experience before I come back and do this, right? So then for me, I was like, well, this is the time to try the fitness thing. I enjoyed training people. I enjoyed, like, in people, I would mean like my brothers or, family members. I always enjoyed it as a passion of mine, never as like a business. Yeah. But I was like, during that time, Instagram and all these fitness influencers were coming up, and I'm like, man, I'm passionate about this stuff. If they can, why can't I? Yeah. So from there, I just hopped on the computer and I Googled, best gyms in Los Angeles, and a gym in West Hollywood by the name of Brick popped up. Okay. It was a CrossFit gym, and it's still there.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah. So I just remember I wrote out my resume. I showed up, and I remember they used to have like NFL guys that would work out there in the off season. I just happened to show up on one of those days, and it was the most intimidating first experience I could have had, because there was just these ginormous dudes throwing barbells around. I have a resume in my hand, and I go to the front desk, and I'm like, hey, I was just wondering if you guys are hiring. And the girl in the front just said, yeah, leave it there and we'll get back to you. Sure. And I was like, all right, I'm never getting a call back. Right. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, something like that, got a call back, and I went in, and I'm super excited. I got my personal training certification. They were like, we're hiring for the front desk.
There you go. Perfect.
And I was like, I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah. But can you imagine, like, my parents had just paid for 4 years of schooling at a college. And then my dad was like, now you're going to go,
front desk.
You're going to be a front desk person, Yeah. And I was like, no, but you don't see the vision, dude. You don't see the vision. Right. Yeah. So did that for a bit, and then stumbled one of the people that worked there was actually a chiropractor, and had a little spot in his chiropractor's office
Yep.
for a trainer to take over.
Yep.
So at that point, he was like, hey, if you have some clients that you would like to train in here, let me know and I can rent you out the space.
No shit.
So from there, I was the front desk guy that was then just greeting everybody and, just trying to talk to people, let them know that I'm a trainer. Little by little, started finding my own type of clientele. And then I ended up taking over that chiropractor's office, turned it into a gym. It's no longer a chiropractor's office, just a gym. And just been growing my clientele little by little.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's been fun.
One of the things that I thought was cool, so you and I have worked out for years. Your place is called Lucky Athletes, by the way.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned that. One of the things I always thought was cool about working out with you in your facility was you definitely have a vision for how you like to train, and you're not the kind of guy that's looking to train people as necessarily bodybuilders. You're more of a fitness guy. You're more well-rounded, full body. I always felt the unique thing was, and I tell everybody this, I steal your shit. Always got to train the back, because you're just such a stickler on, if we're pushing, we got to be pulling.
Yeah.
You always throw that back shit in there. And, now as I'm getting older, I'm like, this dude knows this is where it's at. And I tell people all the time, because we do so much front shit and we're just getting like this, right? And it's like, you got to keep working the back. And I always found that amazing that you really emphasize that. And I think it's something that most people just overlook completely.
Well, I think as a trainer, something that once I started getting a lot of hands-on experience working with clients, I don't have to convince a client, especially if they're a dude, I don't have to convince them to hit their chest or their shoulders.
Right.
Like we all grow up just,
right.
What do you chest press? Everybody's talking about how do you hit 225?
Right.
How much are you overhead pressing? Like that's just like what, us as dudes grow up doing and, probably overdoing for the most of us. So for me, it was like, all right, I need to try to help these people with what they're missing. I'm not going to be giving them more of what they already do. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for me, it's trying to create workouts that build the body, don't break the body, right?
That's right.
I think a lot of people enjoy that feeling where, they almost feel like they're dead after a workout. But, a lot of the times you can't do those very often, like for forever, right? And I'm trying to create something that's sustainable. I'm trying to help people with more of the longevity thing. I'm not trying to do these crazy transformations. I'm trying to give slow habits that are gonna help improve people's quality of life and something that they can do forever. Because unfortunately, this is, you can figure out a business plan that's gonna get you rich tomorrow, and then you can live off of that the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the fitness thing, it's gonna be a forever thing.
It's a forever thing if you're going to commit to it. So it should be a forever thing. It shouldn't be some fleeting thing. You should definitely commit if you're going to do it. I mean, it's super important.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just impossible, right? You won't be able to do any kind of workout that's going to keep you in shape forever.
No, and like I was working out with you. You're like, can you put your arm behind your head and grab your other arm? I'm like, fuck no. You're like, what do you mean? Like, you got to be able to do that. And I'm like, all right. So there's work to be done, and it's really true. And as I've gotten older, I've had to pull back and alter the way I work out, because exactly like you said, like I just want to throw crazy weight around.
Yeah.
And that same mentality that I was doing as like a 20-year-old dude, I'm doing now in my 40s, and I'm like, don't make sense.
Right.
I've worked out with a lot of people, a lot of different trainers, and always, and I take from each area and try to comprise my own thing. But what I think is interesting is there's so much value in having a person like you to work with versus training yourself. Because I think most people, guy, girl, whatever, I think like you're like, I could do this shit myself. And you can. But when you work out with someone that this is what they do, it's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother level of learning. It's a whole nother level of reaching those goals, and probably taking some pointers that are going to stick with you for the rest of your life. Because for me, if I'm not working out with someone like yourself, I'm like getting hurt. I'm doing stupid shit, and I'm getting stuck in this same routine that I always do. And I think you could apply that to anything in life, but that's what I think the real benefit of is the trainer. I mean, it's just like help these people figure out something new and then stick with it. But why do you think it's so hard for people to stay with a trainer? Is it the money? Is it the commitment? It's a combo. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think, for me, I do have a different perspective on the whole training thing, just because I've been in the industry for now 8 years.
Yeah.
And I've kind of distanced myself from personal training, not because, I don't enjoy it or anything like that, but because, I want to help as many people as I can throughout my whole career, right?
Sure.
So if I'm doing just one-on-one,
You got to grow. You can't.
you're capped at a certain point,
You're
right?
capped. You only have so much.
And so for me, the way that I think of it is my responsibility as a trainer is to educate first, right? You got to teach people how to do the basic movements if they don't know it. Some people
Sure.
already come to you knowing the stuff, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
that kind of fast tracks them to the next step. But for people that don't know how to, do the basic functions like a squat, a lunge, an overhead press, all the basic functions, we start there.
Yeah.
But then once you get that down, my responsibility then goes from education to keeping you accountable, right?
That's the thing.
Keeping you accountable and then efficiency, right? If you're, busy with what you got going on outside of the gym, which most people are, right? That's not their career.
Of course.
Right? You got a career you're working with. Some people have kids they have, whatever you have going on.
Yeah.
You don't have time, or you can go into the gym and do whatever, you want to do that day, but most likely won't be the most efficient thing, and you won't get the most bang for your buck, let's just say, for that time that you're spending there.
Sure.
So my job is to make sure that you're not having bad weeks, right? You don't have a week where you got too busy with work and never showed up to the gym. So my job is to make sure you're showing up. And then once you are showing up, my job is to make sure you're doing the best possible thing for what the focus is on that day. Efficiency in your workout, right? So again, for me, I've done less of I always start people off with the one-on-one coaching just because I want to make sure that they're doing everything correctly. And after that, I do more of a group model style of training where I give people their individual workouts. Because going back to your question, people usually don't stick to a trainer because it is expensive. I don't care how much money you're making. If a trainer's, going anywhere from like 100 to 150 a session, right?
Oh, and beyond.
Yeah, and beyond, of course. But, let's just say we're basing it off of just like Equinox, like the big gyms in the area, right?
Yeah.
You're going from like 100 to 150, and that's a couple grand you're spending a month on training,
Easily.
So most people, the most common line as trainers that we hear is, oh, I'm going to start with the trainer just so they can kickstart my fitness routine, and then I'm going to go do it on my own.
Well, sure.
What ends up happening is you're going to start with the fitness trainer, and then the moment you go on your own, you fall off and you go right back to your old habits.
Right.
So for me, it was like, okay, well, if I keep having that experience, I'm not going to keep doing the same thing with every client. I got to figure out some other kind of model that's
And you're also going to have to keep churning clients, and it's a pain in the ass. Yeah, of course.
So figuring out a model that was, that was better for them and better for me, that's made it so that you get rid of that barrier of the financial or,
Well, so what's the model now?
So the model now is people come in, again, they start with the one-on-one. So you do start off having to, work with the trainer one-on-one. But after you have that figured out, it's a membership model of you're paying a monthly membership.
Yep.
But that membership comes with your program. It's 4 different weeks of workouts, right?
Okay.
So the workouts change every week for 4 weeks, and then you go back to the first week. Okay. And there's like office hours for when a trainer is present at the gym.
Yep.
And if there's something on your program that you don't know, you ask the trainer that's there.
Got it.
So that trainer could either be me or I have another guy that helps me out.
Yep.
And for example, it says overhead press. You don't know what an overhead press is. Okay, you have somebody there that's going to coach you through it.
Got it.
Right? But there's probably 5 to 8 people in the room at the same time working out with you.
Sure.
And you also have on the weekends, we're texting clients and letting them know, hey, what times are you coming in this week? So again, you get the accountability piece, and then you get the coaching piece that's going to make sure that your workout is efficient. You're not spending time looking up YouTube videos like, oh, how do I do this? Like nobody wants to do that.
You got somebody floating around taking care of everybody as needed. You figured out a way to corral more people, a better retainer, if you will, that is more affordable, makes more sense economically. They stay longer, and you have the support there. I think it's great.
And you build a community.
And you build in a small community,
Right.
Have you expanded? So, I mean, I remember your spot there was an upstairs. Did you ever grab more of that facility, or
Yeah. So
did you get bigger?
yeah. So when I first started, I was, the chiropractor had the whole first floor, right?
Sure,
And I was
sure.
renting a room. And then once he was leaving, I told the landlord, I was like, yo, he's leaving. I'd like to stay. I can't afford any other, I had been training for like a year. So I
Yeah,
was like, I can't afford anything more than that I have.
yeah,
And it was just one room
yeah,
with like 6 other rooms that needed to be occupied.
yeah,
Thankfully, that landlord was beyond generous, man. He was like, hey, okay, I'll keep renting you that space. It's
yeah.
going to go up a little bit, but it
Sure.
was still something that was manageable.
Yeah,
And then he just found people that were like, I had a lady that had like storage in one room. He was using another one for an office. And just he found ways to rent out the other rooms, which was a blessing for me.
sure, sure.
And then little by little, I took one room,
Right,
took the second room,
right.
took the third room, and now I do have the whole
You get the
first
whole joint.
floor.
Yeah, it's great.
And we have like one room that's for private training. Like I said, when people start, they
Yep,
do start with the one-on-one. So we have a separate room for that they
yep.
can do that one-on-one. Then we have a cardio room in the middle, and then we have more of the community training space where, you have a couple of different cable machines, some different dumbbell racks, so that
Yeah.
you have more of the group vibe going and everybody can get their workout done.
I want to get into it later about the schematics of the business and you coming, you're not from a wealthy family as far as I know. I mean, you just
No.
grinded this shit out, like I said,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
why you're here. Um, I want to talk about that, but first I want to talk about your philosophies on nutrition, because I do remember you being, very, very well versed, and you have some strong concepts. And we live in an age today where it's like, eat vegetables, don't eat vegetables.
Oh
Meat's the
yeah.
best. Meat sucks. Fucking don't drink water. Like it goes on and on and on, right? And you always keep yourself in phenomenal shape. I've never seen you out of shape, right? And I probably never will see you
Yeah,
out
yeah,
of
yeah.
shape. But you always have had a very you've always had a very, I would say, chill approach to the food. Like you don't put a lot of power into it in terms of like, don't eat this, don't eat that. And you're always experimenting. I know that. What have you found though is like, obviously for yourself, and it's never a one size fits all, but what have you found that is pretty much carries the torch of nutrition for you and most of your clients?
Well, I think for me, it's, like you said, it's experimenting, right? But I
Sure.
think when I first started, you start off as a trainer just trying to do it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm going to figure out your workout routine. I'm going to figure out your nutrition routine.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I started, through talking to other trainers, people that were more experienced than I was. They were like, hey, your focus is training, right?
Sure.
So then it was about figuring out, I can't say I don't know anything about nutrition. As a trainer, you should know something about
Something.
nutrition.
Right.
But, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not going to be giving out very specific advice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because then you take on other responsibilities that I was like, hey, that makes sense. I'm going to focus on what I know and, figure out the basics of the other side, meaning nutrition. So for me, it was like, hey, have a vegetable with every meal, have a protein with every meal, and then let the rest take care of itself, right? Because very many people are deficient in carbs, right?
Well, we could go all day on this carb shit, man.
So for me, it's like, I know you're going to eat carbs. So
Right.
I don't need to tell you to do that,
Right.
right?
Right.
But if every meal has a protein in it
Yeah.
and has some kind of vegetable in it,
Yeah.
you're doing that 3 times a day. Or sometimes, if you don't want to eat breakfast, I don't think you should eat breakfast. Just eat when you're hungry.
Eat when you're hungry.
And when you are hungry, eat real food, not some kind of, thing that comes out of a bar, like a bar or a
Or a
smoothie.
bag or any of this garbage.
Like
Yeah.
none of these supplement things.
Yeah.
And if you're hungry for in between meals,
Yeah.
that's when the fruits come in, right? Have a
Right.
piece of fruit,
Right.
Have a handful of nuts.
Yeah.
No one's ever said I'm overweight because I eat too much protein, I eat too many vegetables, or I
Right.
eat too much fruit,
Right.
right?
Right.
Most of the time it's the processed stuff.
Of course.
Or people smashing smoothies and not realizing that they're
sugar
having
and
1,000 calories per smoothie.
Crazy amount of calories. Yeah.
Right? So for me, it's like if you're sticking to the basics and then enjoying a treat from time to time, trust me,
Yeah.
man.
I
I'm
know you love your fucking treats, man. Yeah.
I'm a big croissant guy before a big hard
Yeah,
workout.
yeah.
I'm a big burger and a beer guy on the weekends.
Yeah.
So, but a majority of the time I'm doing that other stuff,
But
right?
you would say though, and so like I said, yeah, it's a simple foundation that you believe in, and I think that's great because you're not just overthinking it. eat when you're hungry. Yes, as if you're going to be strength training, you need more protein than the typical person, but
Right.
you don't need gobs of protein,
No.
right? Keep the carbs relatively in check. Don't go no carb because the body runs on fucking
Yeah.
glycogen and
Right.
glucose, right? That you need it. But I would say my take from your style of eating is you're pretty much, you're a light eater though. You're not like you're not a heavy eater.
I mean, because I eat a lot during the
But you
day,
also burn a shit ton of calories because you're working out all day too.
but I prefer a lot of little small meals, right?
Okay.
So for example, for breakfast, I'm eating, eggs and yogurt, right?
Yeah.
Nothing heavy, nothing
Yeah.
big, nothing super filling.
Yeah.
But then maybe a couple hours later, I'm having a piece of fruit.
Okay.
And then a couple hours later, I'm having, like I said, some protein and
So you're
vegetables.
kind of fueling it kind of steadily all through the day and burning as well.
Right. And the thing is like you said, I'm doing 15 to 20,000 steps a day based off of just my job.
Just walking around and doing your shit. Yeah.
And, I'm moving stuff around the gym. I'm pretty active. So like, again, my body's constantly burning, but I'm not someone that's like, oh, I need to eat 200 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
Or
do you even count? Do you even deal with You don't even bother with that shit, right?
No, man. It's again, man, it's about trying to create something that's sustainable, something that's realistic
and enjoyable, because then you get crazy.
And especially, when I was 18, I had more time on my hands to do that kind of stuff. As I started to take on more responsibilities with business, it kind of helps me relate to my clients more, right?
For sure.
And,
Right.
I have a client that's a lawyer. They're not going to be, eating lunch, weighing out how much chicken and rice they're having,
macros and
So for me, it's made it so that I can create something that's more sustainable, more realistic to maintain, and
What do you think about all this kind of mainstream craziness, around fitness? If you go on Instagram and you see, I'm not going to name anybody, right? But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course.
What do you think about this shit, man? Just so many opinions, right? And you're just sitting here saying, well, I just kind of eat whatever the fuck I want, essentially, and I'm in shape, right? So how do you deal with that?
I mean, I feel bad for people that are taking this kind of, content or whatever you want to call it in, because even as a trainer that's very educated on these types of topics, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah,
it's like all of a sudden I'm hearing about how you don't need, you should go more the keto route and not eat carbs at all. And I'm over here eating sweet potatoes and brown rice. And then it's like making me second guess myself.
No, that's what I'm saying. It makes people crazy.
But, I think for me, I've gotten to the point where, so I think it's terrible because it makes the average person, which this content should be made for.
Exactly.
It makes it impossible to navigate through.
Impossible to navigate it.
Right?
Impossible.
So it sucks because, but at the same time, if you and I are here talking about, eat vegetables, eat protein, and eat fruit, people are going to flip the channel.
God forbid. Yeah. We said eat vegetables. Or, it's, I know, man, it's crazy.
So, it's, at the end of the day, it sucks, but
it's frustrating for you, man. Yeah, I could see it. I could see you burning.
It's frustrating, but I'm lucky enough where I have my own facility where I have a good community there that helps me do what I enjoy every day. So I don't have to navigate through it as much. I'm not trying to fight for attention and create a social media presence to pay my bills, right? I love the person to person interaction. I don't want to go remote. I don't want to, all this online training stuff. Of course.
You thrive off of that shit. I get it. That's why I love that. I got to be around people.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting, man, because you're not Mr. Social Media. You're not trying to blow yourself up. You just, like I said in the beginning, you put your fucking head down and you go to work.
Yeah.
And you just do your shit.
Yeah.
Right. And you're reaping the benefits of it. I would say we could transition now into the fact that, like you have this business you've built, which is incredible. It's insane to have a business today and actually be making some money.
Yeah.
Right. And now you have people working for you. I mean, like, most people don't understand that it's not cut out. Not everyone's cut out for that shit. Okay. And I think, again, we'll go back to social media, right? You got all these voices just saying you could do it and everybody could do the same shit and everybody's got to invest in real estate and everybody's got to do this. And, it's not the truth, man.
No.
Not everybody could do this shit. So, I mean, what do you think, what habits or what's inside of you that has essentially made you successful? Like, what do you think the difference that you
I,
have versus the average person that's like, oh, I want to do something, but am I going to really be able to do it?
I think for me, it's always been that I have ideas in my head that I, for whatever reason, can't quiet down,
Mm-hmm.
that there's no job listing for, right? So for example,
There's no job description for what.
you know, when I came out in my head on like, oh, I want to be a trainer, or even let's just say, let's go back to when I said I wanted to work with kids in high school,
Right.
right? I wanted to teach these kids about, how to manage money.
Right.
I wanted to talk to these kids about, different things that schools don't do.
Yeah.
And so when I found myself in the environment of a school and talking to the people in charge that made these decisions, I was like, hey, I think it's cool if we do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's not what we do here. Take a seat.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay. So then that right away takes away like my passion and what I was doing at the moment.
Yeah.
Then transition to me working at a gym, right? I worked at Brick, that gym, that CrossFit gym. Then I also worked at Equinox. Again, both are two of the top gyms in West Hollywood, and both great. I learned a lot from working there for however long I did. But it still wasn't, what they weren't doing it how I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just hard to do the day to day, knowing that I didn't think it was the most efficient or effective way to do it.
You have a vision.
I've always had, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to ask myself, why am I doing it this way? What is the objective? Is this the best way to do the thing? Which I feel like, I've, through meeting different entrepreneurs over the years, being in West Hollywood, there's a ton of them,
Sure.
I feel like it's a very similar mindset, right?
For sure.
And I think that's the, I always tell people, my objective was never to be a business owner, right? It was just like, I realized it was probably the only thing.
The only thing you could be fucking capable of doing. Yeah.
That's just how my brain works, right?
No, right. No, I get it 100%. And you and I have had many conversations about business because when you have a lot of interesting people that come through your gym.
Yeah.
I was one of them. But you were able to get a lot of knowledge from talking to all these, successful guys and girls that come through the gym, and you picking their brains. And I always love talking to you about business because I saw that you were like I said, you're a hustler, man. And obviously you're good with money because, you could have, like you said, you could have came out of the gate, maybe did some online shit. There's no overhead. You open a fucking facility. Gym equipment is, I mean, that ain't cheap, right? I mean, there's a lot of overhead that's involved. Most people can't do a brick and mortar today. It's crazy. You got to be nuts to do that shit.
And I always tell people that I feel like it was just meant to be, just because I got my personal training certification, worked the front desk at Brick, and was probably a trainer at Equinox for like 2 months before I opened up shop at the business,
crazy,
And like you said, West Hollywood's not cheap, right?
Man, this is not where you do this shit.
If I would have gone out and said like, okay, I'm going to set a 5-year plan from the first day I started the front desk thing to be opening up a gym in West Hollywood, never would have happened, right? Because like you said, if I would have gone the traditional route, looking for real estate with the real estate person,
right,
buying equipment, doing everything, the startup cost is probably a couple $100,000.
It gotta be.
Right?
Gotta be.
And so for me, I just started off trying to be a trainer. Somebody offers me a little squared space, probably the same size of the room that we're sitting in right now.
Yeah.
I buy a cable machine, a squat rack, and some dumbbells.
Yeah.
Do I run any numbers? Hell no.
No, of course not. You wouldn't know.
Do I run projections?
Of course not.
Hell no.
Yeah, no. Right.
All I run is, all right, do I have enough to pay this month's rent? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Right. So for me, it was just something that, I fell into. I knew I was passionate about something. I had a vision for something. And then as opportunity started to open, I was able to take advantage. But yeah.
And I remember always telling you, like, this shit takes long, man, because like, you said you're about 7 years into this shit. It ain't until about you're running a business for about 10 years till you really even start to, I mean, most of the time, like, start to hit a stride a little bit where, okay, I got a little money now, maybe. I mean, and you're coming into that now. You're getting to that point where
Yeah.
you're expanding, you're learning how to delegate. You're filling the joint and you're figuring shit out, and your brain is always working on like, all right, what can I do next? How can I help more people? I love that. That's what's tough though. I mean, people don't understand. Like you just can't jump into something and expect it to work like that,
Yeah.
man. Shit takes a long time, right? And like I said, you're good with money because I remember coming in there like, you're not whipping no fancy cars. You're being conservative where you need to. You got to keep the lights on, like you said.
Yeah.
And and I think people really fuck that up. They get a little taste of some dough,
Well,
and that's it, man.
you
They can't sustain it.
and you mentioned, I get a lot of interesting people that walk through that
Right.
space. And I have a lot of clients that people would pay to sit down, right? Like, hey, Freddie, I'd really like to pick your brain on something.
Yeah.
And people are willing to pay the people that are paying me
Yeah.
for their time.
Yeah.
And these people are paying me for my time.
Yeah.
So, and I'm able to ask as many questions
Yeah,
as
you're
I
a
like,
sponge,
right? It's a
bro. Yeah.
safe space in there,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So for me, one of the best pieces of advice I got was from one of my clients. He told me, every time you're faced with the problem, that's where somebody else in your industry decided to give up.
That's right.
So for me, I remember he was telling me that because I had just finished remodeling the space, put Venetian plaster walls. I was feeling real good about myself. I show up to the gym and the plumbing
Oh, fuck.
messed up and
Yeah.
gym's flooded. The walls are ruined.
Damn.
I wanted to close up shop that same day. I was
Right,
like, I'm
right.
going to tell the landlord, I tried
Right.
to make this space as nice as I could. Clearly this is a sign that it's not working.
Yeah.
And I remember that client came in. Obviously, we didn't work out that day because there was sewage all over my floor. But he told me, he's like, somebody else this happened to, and this is where they decided to give up. And business is all about how long can you stick around.
That's it. You just said it. There's nothing left to say. It's consistency and just staying in the game, getting back up.
Those are the words I needed to hear that day.
it.
And I still kind of get chills hearing myself say it, just because, I was this close, man. Just
That fucking killed you. Yeah, you thought you were done. Yeah,
man. Like having those mats are in the gym are 100-pound mats.
Yeah.
Having and that's another thing. It's
yeah.
like, you work for somebody. Oh, that's just another day where like I'm gonna get paid to clean this place up.
I'm just coming into work. I'm going to collect to help you out. Yeah, but now it's your spot.
Now I'm like,
oh shit,
I just paid X amount to remodel this place.
Yeah.
Now I have to clean this place.
Right.
And I can make no money until I'm done cleaning this place.
Right now. Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, all right. After hearing that, I was like, all right. It went. My mindset shifted from starting to feel bad for myself, which is what I started when I first walked into that, to like, this is just going to be part of the story. Let me clean it all up real quick, and let's move on.
And it's fine to have that momentary little, that moment where you're like, I got to pack it in, right? That happens, but you snap out of that shit and you go do it, right? And you did, and here you go.
Yeah.
What's the future hold for Lucky Athletes? So you're in this membership model now. I know you want to help a lot of people. I know you love helping kids. You do a lot of extracurricular stuff with kids. Where do you see it going? Like, what is? I'm sure at this point now you have some kind of projection or plan.
Yeah.
What are you working on?
Well, first and foremost, it's always going to be, the facility that I have here in West Hollywood. So it's just about keeping that running and helping out as many people as we can here in West Hollywood. So keeping that going, growing it, we're pretty happy with the space that we're in right now.
Sure.
But if we were to outgrow the space, move into some other space here in West Hollywood. But I think most importantly for me, the thing has always been that fitness should not be a luxury, right?
Yes,
So,
sure.
It used to be like you just go into a 24-hour fitness and you get your workout in, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, once it became all about these glamorous gyms, it became these $1,000 memberships.
Yeah.
These, even more. There's memberships that cost a couple grand to work out at a space.
I got a few of them, dude. I get it. You could start fucking racking these things up, and like it's just another commodity that.
But like, it shouldn't cost that much to learn how to live a healthy lifestyle, right? So for me, like you said, I do some of the stuff with the kids. So our goal is to have different tiers, right? Like, for example, right now we work with the group of 5th graders.
Yeah.
in 5th grade, I'm not going to get these kids in the weight room, right?
No, you don't need to.
And these kids really like soccer. So we give them soccer training by a guy that used to play professionally, goes out with them once a week and just kicks the ball around with them, right? These are kids that, their parents probably can't afford for private training or anything higher than AYSO.
Yeah.
And, that was somebody like myself. And I always, if somebody when I was growing up would have told me like, hey, you have baseball practice every single day, I would have been there every single day. And, my parents couldn't afford that kind of stuff. So instead, I would play the local parks and recs, and I would probably practice once during the week and play on the weekends, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, my mind has always gone with trying to provide something that I wish I had, right? So for me, I have these kids that, live in an apartment, wish they could play soccer every single day.
Yeah.
But their parents can't afford it.
Yeah.
So at least I know that they're going to be getting it in once a week with high level coaching. And the goal is going to be to start providing that 2 times a week, 3 times a week we have some creative ways to try to create some funding for that. That's one thing. But then it's also, adults also need some kind of help also, right?
No doubt.
So also trying to get in with, different communities besides West Hollywood with people that maybe can't afford, even if it's an affordable membership, which we have here. What we charge here is $300 a month. Some people can't afford $300 a month either, and
no,
I just,
sure. No, but that's could be a lot for, most people.
That's what I'm saying. So for me, it's about also getting out in the community and trying to help whichever way we can.
Yeah.
Obviously being 2 people, which is what we are at Lucky Athletes.
Yeah.
It's, it's hard, but that's the main goal now is, hey, keep the business running here, but at the same time, trying to get creative so that we're never going to say no, whether it's a kid trying to learn how to move. Oh, and then again, like I said, these kids right now are in 5th grade.
Yeah.
When they get to 9th grade, okay, now it's time to get you guys in the weight room.
Now we can pump some iron. Yeah.
And it's all about, trying to create these different models so that you literally can help anybody and everybody that comes your way.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So that's the main objective, or that's the focus on how we're growing. But yeah, pretty excited.
I get like some dad vibes from you. Trying to give people what you didn't have.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
I mean,
that's pretty interesting. That's how your mind works.
Yeah, that's how my mind works.
I think there's 2 kinds of people in this world. There's fucking givers and there's takers.
Yeah.
So you obviously fallen into that giver category, which is where you want to be. I think it's super admirable, man. I mean, most people, that shit probably doesn't cross their mind, but trying to figure out how, and you're not like, you don't have kids.
No.
Right. And you're willing to give, to anyone.
Yeah. And I think it's just, based off of the environment you grew up in, I do have a good relationship with my parents.
Yeah.
And then, seeing them give so much to me and seeing the people around me not having that same experience. Right.
Yeah,
Again,
sure.
I mean, I didn't grow up in the ghetto, but I grew up, where some people had, not so nice home lives, right?
Yeah, right.
And for me, it's like I didn't see my dad from the time I would wake up to the time I would go to bed sometimes because he was working.
Right.
And for me, just seeing that kind of stuff, it was like, all right, that's what I want to do and that's how I want to be in.
Yeah,
but I want to move the needle a little bit, right?
Right.
For him, it was just simply to keep food on the table, pay for our schooling or whatever he was doing at the time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's, move the needle. Now instead of, helping somebody survive, I'm going to try to help somebody thrive is what I've always said, right? For us in my family, it was survival, right? Yeah. Keeping a roof over our head, keeping food on the table and getting us through school. It wasn't about, what jobs can you guys get to make the most money?
Yeah.
It wasn't about, thriving. It was literally about stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
Make enough money to pay the bills and get passing grades, right? Now for me, it's how do I, move that up a little bit, right? So now it's about doing all that, but at the same time, trying to help that next generation, whether it's my kids or whatever kids are around my community, have a little bit better.
That shit's it's innate in you because I think a lot of people have to they come to a point in their life where they have to figure that out. You already knew that, which is why you're able to navigate the way you are. This is why your path, you have your bumps, but your path's going smoothly because you have that there, which is, it's super important. And like I said, it's not something, I don't even know if this is a skill that can be learned, and this is my point. Not everyone is cut out for, for success, or for whatever you thought you were going to be cut out for. You have to have something that drives you, that's from a real place, that's real. It can't be about money. It can't be about superficial shit. And I think the thing that drives you is exactly what you said. And that's powerful, man, because not many people have that. I don't have, like, so I work on that. I have a little bit of that, but not to the degree you have it. So I've had to work on that. Maybe you can learn it, but you can never get it to someone that just has that natural ability. My wife's like that, which is why she's incredible. I mean, she has that. It's just in her, and that drives her vision.
Well, and I think honestly, if you're gonna take on the entrepreneur route and opening up a business, it's important to have that, because anytime you walk into your space and it's flooded, you're gonna go back to that, right? I'm gonna ask
Right.
myself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this, right?
Why am I doing
You start
this?
seeing, even when you have a bad month, or you're looking to your right and your left and you're seeing that business grow faster than you're the one thing that's gonna always keep me level-headed is always asking myself, okay, they're doing something different, you're following your own thing,
Yeah.
and what's the objective of your thing? Okay,
That's
I'm
right,
doing
yeah.
it for this.
No, that's it,
Right.
man. Yeah.
And I think that's what's been able to keep me going.
Yeah.
It's definitely not been, I think a lot of people hear like, oh, I own a gym, and it's like, oh, this guy's killing it,
Right.
and it's like,
Right.
thankfully I'm not, struggling to keep the lights on at this point anymore,
Right.
but it's far from easy,
No, of course. It's correct.
and
Exactly.
it's good to have that in the back of my mind of, again, now that I'm working with these kids,
Yeah.
I am doing some work in the community with adults as well, right? It always just is like, oh damn, I have
Yeah.
to keep going, because these kids are looking
Yeah.
up to me at this point, or these adults are not looking up to me, but they're depending on my facility and coming in here and doing the work that nobody else is willing to give them for
Exactly.
free.
Exactly.
So for me, it's been something that's super important, just to keep me motivated and keep me going on this.
But again, another great skill that you have is you go by your own barometer. You're not worried about what fucking dude next door is doing, or what this gym's doing, or what anybody else is doing. You have your own pace that works for you, and as it comes, you deal with it. And that's just a good way to live. I think that's a way to live that, when you talk about balance in life. And I don't know, I don't know if it's true that people that are building businesses could be really, really balanced. I think that there's a time later in life, after you get shit together more, that you can kind of start focusing on balancing your life more. But when you're grinding and building shit, there's really no balance. You got to go hard. But I think your mentality allows a little bit, or enough of that, to keep you sane, keep you mentally healthy and strong. And obviously your physical health, you're always taking care of that. But that's because of that mentality you have. And it's a great combo. It's a great combo to have, man. It really is.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think trying to run for me, I tried doing the whole running a business based off of numbers and projections and all that kind of stuff, and it was sucking all the life out of me.
You're going to eventually have to hire a finance guy. This is the thing. You're not going to be great at that. That's fine. You got to get okay at it. You're going to hire somebody eventually. You're going to hire a guy to do this. You're going to hire someone to do that. All these other pieces as it grows.
Yeah.
But you're going to do it when you're ready.
Right.
And you're not going to do it when somebody tells you to do it.
Right. But I think it's like, there's gyms out there, these gyms that start up with investors, right?
Right.
Like, let's just say a group fitness class, right?
Yeah.
Whichever one you want to think of, whichever one comes to your mind, they're all projecting off of like, okay, we have a space that's X square feet. We can fit X amount of people in here.
It's all numbers.
It's all a numbers game, right? For me, the moment I start thinking that way, I am losing.
Yeah.
Right? Because for me, the biggest thing was just, what do I want to do, right? Oh, I want to help as many people as I can.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Which ways are you going to do it? Okay, well, if you're in West Hollywood, you're going to come to my facility. If you're in this place, I can help you out this way.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now just go out there, be you, and see how many people you can reach, and
it's obviously working for you.
And it's working, maybe not the smartest way, but
No, you can't. No, like I said, it's working.
yeah,
You're not a person that you could tell when there's people that are super stressed and they're just
yeah,
not healthy mentally, right?
yeah,
You're
yeah,
not one of them, man.
yeah,
I could smell that shit fucking mile away.
right.
That's not you. So, kudos to your success
Thank you,
and
thank you,
to how
thank you.
you've managed to navigate this crazy world, man. I'm going to ask you a couple rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
What what's one non-negotiable for you, like in your daily life? What would you say?
I think one daily non-negotiable is moving my body.
Love it.
Doesn't then a lot of people think, as a trainer, I hate the fact that everybody thinks of a trainer as a meathead.
Yeah,
Like
I know.
for me, it's far from. It doesn't have to be lifting weights, right?
Sure.
Going for a walk, going for a swim, lifting weights,
Yep.
foam rolling,
Yep.
something, man. You
Something.
gotta move your body and get some kind of blood flow going.
Okay.
So that's
Love that.
yeah.
That's perfect. What's one habit that's changed your life?
I think one habit that's changed my life is going to bed and waking up at a similar time every single day, even on the
You
weekends.
stick to that shit, do you?
Even on the
Wow.
weekends. Even on the weekends.
for you, yeah.
I think that's one thing that it's easier to do when you're 31 and not going out as much as you used to when
Yeah.
you were in your 20s.
Yeah.
But I used to always be pretty strict just because of work during the week, but then weekends were kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man.
And I think it's just it's helped me feel better. Yeah, I think
I'm in bed by 8 usually.
I'm a 9 o'clock guy.
Yeah, I can push that. I'm like a 9 to 9 or 9 to 8 kind of schedule.
Yeah.
It keeps you sharp.
Yeah,
It
for
keeps you
sure.
sharp. What's one book every dude should read?
For me personally, I really enjoyed. I don't know if you've heard of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, no doubt, of course.
I just think because it's not going to answer all your questions, but it's going to start getting you thinking about money and
Yeah,
money not on how to be a millionaire, but money on how to set yourself up.
sure.
So for me, it was probably the biggest one that, like you said, I'm not a flashy guy, right? I'm not striving to drive around the Porsche. I'm not striving to drive around any of these fancy cars.
Right.
For me, I'm just striving to be, financially secure,
Sure.
and that's gonna allow me to live
Do
my
whatever the
life
fuck you want anyway.
Live my life
Like,
how
you could
I
have
want.
that shit if you want it, but if
Right.
it's not important,
Right.
it doesn't matter. Love that. What is your relationship with failure like?
Damn.
Like, how do you approach? I think you gave a good example, but let's see what you got to say.
No, I think my relationship with failures is still needs to improve a little bit, just because
That's cool. It's fair.
it's again, year one of being a trainer, I opened a gym. So then everybody that's seeing it on, social media or whatever, it's like, oh, this guy's going to crush it, So now you feel like you started off with a win.
Yeah.
If you lose, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
So for me, it's, I get in my head a lot about trying certain things, right? Because when you start, you got nothing to lose, right? I have 0 clients. What do I have to lose?
Shit.
Right? Now I've built up a facility. I've built up a community. I have, bigger overhead. It gets a little bit scary. Now you're not you're not swinging for the home runs anymore. You're sometimes swinging just to make contact.
Fucking base hit, little bunt. Yeah.
But I do think I like to check myself out of that. And so I think, to answer your question, my relationship with failure is up and down. And I think, I can work on it a little bit.
I love it. Last one. What do you think the biggest challenge of being a man today is?
I don't think it's only about men in this what I'm about to say, but I think it's just not comparing yourself. I think this, because, and I think also nowadays, there's no such thing as which side is a provider. I think women are now super passionate about their careers also. But as a dude, you're always thinking about how to provide, right? And I think you're always, with social media, it's just become impossible not to look at what other people are doing.
Right.
And that you're listening to what other people are doing and not to what's going on inside your own head. So you're ending up doing things that are not natural. You're doing things that you don't really want to do because you're just basing all your decisions based off of what you're seeing and how you're comparing yourself,
Sure.
rather than just taking the time when it's quiet to listen to yourself
Yeah.
and being like, oh, this happened today, I don't like that, I want to do things this way, or I want to do this. But you don't even have that time. So I feel like the biggest challenge that us as dudes right now are facing is that it's just comparing nonstop comparing ourselves.
Spot on. Yeah.
um
That's it, man.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. If there's anything else you'd like to say or talk about with Lucky Athletes or anything else going on that you feel you need to spread the word about,
No, man, I think for me, I started off really nervous about when this first started, but I think once we got it going, I
you
literally
warmed up,
forgot.
dude. You
I
warmed up.
forgot the cameras were on. But I'm just excited to. I was excited to come on and share a little bit about what I have going on, so that people, if they were to go, and try to check out the gym or want to learn more about the gym, um, they kind of know where my head's at and what we're about.
For sure. Well, we're going to help spread that for you, my man.
Appreciate it, man.
How can everybody find you?
To learn more about me and the gym, my Instagram handle is SeusLA, like Dr. Seuss, but without the doctor. So SEUSS.LA. There you can find a little bit more about me and get to know the gym a little bit.
Cool.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you again, my man.